Hunter Jody was incredibly lucky today. Right outside her home, she found a huge moose during moose season. It was an opportunity too good to miss. She lives in a small village in northern Alaska, along the Middle Yukon River, inhabited by the Koyukon people. For thousands of years, locals have survived by hunting and trapping. Even today, many indigenous natives continue this way of life. Jody is a member of the Crow tribe, a group within the Native Americans. Hunting is a vital part of their traditional culture and has played a significant role in the advancement of human civilization. In Jody's case, the moose was drinking from the riverbank, unaware it was being targeted. Due to the distance, her first shot missed as the bullet dropped. She adjusted her aim higher for the second shot, which hit the moose, indicating a successful hunt. She quickly went home to call her husband, Jim, and together with their son, they boated over to retrieve the animal. The first thing they did was respectfully remove the moose's head and face it towards their home, symbolizing respect for the sacrifice that would feed their entire family. They processed the moose meat and transported it back to their smokehouse, relying entirely on the land and becoming one with nature. This is their heritage and their instinct. As winter approached, the river's ice thickened overnight. During this time, fetching water from the Yukon River was most dangerous. Typically, the family would head out together to avoid accidents. Jody, a Gwich'in, was born in a small village called Eagle and has lived on this land for thousands of years. She grew up in this raw environment and later married Jim, with whom she co-manages his family's native allotment. Though life is tough, they find joy in it. It is said that some indigenous areas receive significant annual government subsidies, which increase with the number of children. Even though Jody's family has secured a moose, they still need to store water and wood for the winter, as work seems never ending. Due to the thin ice, fetching water is dangerous, prompting Jim to ask their son, Dinari, for a rope. He held one end and gave the other to his son. With the water level dropping and hollow ice below, falling in was not a joke. Many have lost their lives in the Yukon River. Jim used an ice chisel for safety as they moved, and Jody secured the rope to her husband's harness as a precaution, maintaining a respectful awe of nature, which is essential for survival. Many wonder why they risk fetching water from the ice instead of melting snow. The reason is that river water is cleaner and heating it saves precious fuel. Once they finished collecting water, it was time to gather wood for heating. Jody, a wise old woman, learned to use a chainsaw as a teenager and has been unstoppable since. She effortlessly handles the heavy tasks of cutting trees, chopping wood, and carrying logs. When the firewood burns in the stove, filling the cabin with warmth, all the hardships feel worthwhile. Nature nourishes everything in the world, providing all that is needed to survive on this land. Living here brings inner peace and is a wonderful experience. Now, with the last load of wood gathered, it's time for a hot tea break. They melt snow for water and use readily available herbs as tea leaves, creating a drink called jerrican. The family is currently very fortunate with a large moose, plenty of water, and ample firewood, nearly everything needed for winter, giving them a solid sense of security. In the wilderness, they value quality of life over money. Having food, drink, and the company of family is enough for Jody. With the hard work done, she prepares a special meal to treat herself and her family. She cooks moose tenderloin and fat in a pan, and there's also a plate of sliced deer sinew. Having fresh meat in winter is far superior to canned food. Moose meat is said to be very tasty, and eating such healthy meat helps Jody raise strong, healthy children. As an indigenous mother, Jody has much to learn and understand. Passing on traditional culture, survival skills, and values to her children is her lifelong mission. Meanwhile, in a corner of Alaska, another native is preparing food for the winter. However, he is not hunting in the mountains, but targeting the huge king crabs in the sea. King crabs, costing hundreds per pound, are unaffordable for many. But the natives living in this frigid region can enjoy them without spending a dime. This takes place in Aksoyok, a Supiaq people's camp in Alaska. Marvin, an Aleut native, has spent most of his life here. He is now on his way to Olga Bay to set a crab trap. For these natives, what we consider a luxury seafood is just a common winter food. Today, the weather is good, but it's just the calm before the storm. Marvin needs to hurry to set his crab traps before the weather worsens. In recent years, driven by profit, king crab overfishing has caused significant harm to fishermen who rely on the sea. Aksoyak is a remote location with limited resources, and catching enough fish is vital for their livelihood. Whether it rains, snows, or winds, they must go out to sea to fish. It's easiest to set out at low tide, and reaching their destination takes an hour one way. But the effort is worth it if they catch fish. Living here long-term, Marvin has gained extensive survival experience. Catching king crabs is easier here than elsewhere, but there's a significant danger. The bay freezes over in winter. Before this happens, Marvin must catch enough crabs. He baits the traps, ties them with ropes, and pushes them into the sea. The ropes must be long enough to reach the seabed, or the hunt will fail. Life in the wilderness is brutally simple but not easy. Setting traps is straightforward, but retrieving them is more challenging. Therefore, Marvin enlists the help of Green and his nephew Justin. In return, they will share in the catch. Green, who married Marvin's niece, moved here in 2005 and fell in love with this lifestyle, never leaving since. Apart from being family, he is also Marvin's apprentice, learning fishing and hunting survival skills. Today's king crab catch is another lesson in survival. Alaska's winter arrives quickly. Just one day later, a thick layer of ice forms on the sea. To reach the traps, they must drive the boat over the ice. Marvin uses the sturdy Green as a counterweight at the boat's front, which helps break the ice. This is risky. If the boat gets stuck, it's a disaster. But for food, they take the chance. Luckily, the ice isn't too thick, and both boats safely pass. After over an hour, they reach where the traps were set. You might wonder why two boats are needed to check a crab trap. The traps are heavy, and the sea is deep, making it hard for one person to retrieve them. Using two boats, one stays as an anchor point while Justin pulls the rope in the opposite direction, making it easier to lift the trap. They are anxious. A successful catch means food, but an empty trap means wasted fuel. The worst case is the rope breaking, losing the trap and their investment. With Green's shout, the trap stops right at the boat's front, and their faces show a successful haul. Indeed, they've caught many king crabs. At local high-end restaurants, $100 might buy just a few crab legs, but they only need to go fishing. For ecological sustainability, smaller crabs are released back into the sea. Today's work ends here. They head home to process the catch. The king crabs are steamed for 20 minutes, then ready to enjoy. Marvin, a kind elder, is eager to teach others his way of making a living, and dreams of passing down these traditional skills learned from his parents. Pouring cold water on the cooked crabs makes the meat firmer and easier to remove from the shell. Both the nephew and son-in-law receive a bucket of king crabs each, a reward for their hard work. Compared to Aksoyak, there is a place where the natives are even more relentless. They eat everything they can catch, even whales. This family, each a formidable hunter, won't hesitate to consume bowhead whales, super prey weighing tens of tons, if they are hungry. This is Gamble on St. Lawrence Island, located at the southern entrance of the Bering Strait, closer to Russia than to Alaska. Once the most desolate volcanic island in the Bering Sea, the island lacks the means for rearing cattle or cultivating fields. All natives live by hunting, primarily consuming marine life like fish, seals, and walruses. Even massive bowhead whales are no match for their appetites. Today's main character is Daniel, a Siberian Yupik. His wife Susan and their two sons, Chris and Chase, rely on hunting and fishing in the Bering Sea for their subsistence. Their self-sufficient lifestyle is straightforward but harsh. Each morning, their first task is to find food in the sea. Today, Chris and Daniel went to their hunting ground, hoping to bring something home, but encountered a bowhead whale close to shore. However, the cold weather isn't ideal for whaling, as the whale meat, skin, and blubber would freeze instantly, making butchering extremely difficult. Therefore, they had to forego whaling for now. Commercial whaling has long been banned to protect ecosystems, but these natives are legally allowed to hunt whales for food. Just as the whale dove underwater, a bearded seal surfaced, a rare opportunity. Without hesitation, Chris fired at the seal, but it was beyond the effective range of his weapon, and he missed. The chance for a hunt vanished as quickly as it appeared, blamed on bad luck. The hunters had to give up again. Now the father and son must find this week's food, or their family will go hungry. If they fail to hunt, Daniel might have to resort to less efficient ice fishing. The next day, Daniel and his sons chose ice fishing on the frozen lake. Although it's less rewarding, it's more reliable. Living in this desolate land, Daniel teaches his sons how to fish and hunt, sustaining a self-sufficient life. They drilled 3 holes in the ice and started a competition to see who could catch more fish. Enjoying life despite hardships makes their existence more meaningful. Unexpectedly, a storm hit before they caught any fish. The rapid weather change brought strong winds mixed with snow, potentially leading to a whiteout where hunters lose visibility. Driving on dangerously thin ice could mean falling through and not coming out. As an elder, Daniel has experienced nearly every kind of bad weather. He knows how to respond appropriately. The 3 immediately stopped fishing and hurried home. Navigating through the blinding storm, they safely returned to their cabin. Although they didn't catch any fish, at least they all returned home safely. Not challenging nature head-on and adapting to circumstances allows them to survive better on this harsh land. On the 3rd day, the weather finally improved, making it an ideal time for fishing. They returned to the spot where they had fished the day before, drilled open the ice holes, and started fishing again. After several days of effort, they finally caught something: a small smelt. While it wasn't as big or as tasty as king salmon, it was still decent. Soon after, Daniel caught a second fish, leaving his youngest son astonished. With the 3 ice holes so close together, he wondered why only his father was catching fish. Just then, Chris caught something too: a cod. Chase began to panic. He didn't want his brother to outshine him. Despite his best efforts, he couldn't seem to catch anything, while Daniel was on a roll, catching fish after fish in an incredible streak. Chase and his brother switched spots, and finally, Chase managed to catch a fish. By the end, Chase had caught 1 fish, Chris had 3, and Daniel had astonishingly caught 21. Amidst the family's laughter and cheers, the fishing competition came to an end. The father passed on his survival skills to his sons, who would, in turn, teach them to their children. They would continue to live and pass down this way of life for generations. In Alaska's Iliamna Lake, a small family of 3 is threatened by a terrifying brown bear. A fierce brown bear broke into the hunter's camp, apparently tempted by the smell of hot dogs. However, when the hunter pulled out his shotgun, the bear turned and ran off, cursing. This is Iliamna Lake in Alaska, where the native Joel and his family are searching for dry, standing spruce trees. Recently, their bear neighbor has been raiding their food stash. To prevent their winter food supply from being stolen by this unwelcome neighbor, Joel is building an elevated storage shed. Construction is one of the pleasures of wilderness life, though it's quite laborious. Look at this small cabin. It took Joel 10 years to build, showing the extent of his effort. Joel is an Athabascan and works as a bush pilot. His ultimate goal in life is to be entirely self-sufficient off the land. His wife Jacqueline and daughter Enslin are with him. Joel is determined to pass down the traditional lifestyle and practices of his ancestors to his daughter, so she can continue to pass them on to future generations. Back to building the house, creating an elevated storage allows them to store fish and all their food, securing provisions for the tough winter ahead. At the end of autumn, locals go to great lengths to catch fish. If this hard-earned food were stolen by bears, the family would be devastated. Now, with days getting shorter and the weather colder, they must finish the storage shed within the coming days. The local forest has plenty of wood, and harvesting it requires both skill and strength. Joel's robust physique not only handles daily chores, but also won him his love. According to his wife Jacqueline, it was his tree chopping that made her fall madly in love with him, leading her to leave the city and join him in the wilderness. They spent the whole day busy, chopping trees, sawing logs, and loading the boat, finally returning home happily loaded. People living here understand one principle: to keep this lifestyle sustainable, they must protect the land. Whether cutting trees or hunting, they only take what they genuinely need. With all materials ready, construction of the storage began. Joel sketched his own design for a traditional elevated storage room. He needed his wife's help to set up the frame so he could continue the work alone. First, he made notches on the posts and corresponding slots in the beams for assembly. Once all posts were erected and supported at the base, combining them was perhaps the most dangerous step, so his wife came to help. Together, they adjusted it several times until they finally completed the first step, which took an entire day. The couple used the same method to construct the other side and connected both sides with a log. The brown bear didn't stop causing trouble during the construction, occasionally coming to disturb them. The more the bear interfered, the quicker the hunter needed to work. He built a wooden frame and laid the floor on top. Completing this task alone in the wilderness can bring peace, joy, and a great sense of achievement. After finishing the floor, Joel started building the walls and the roof frame, then filled them in with wooden planks and covered the roof with waterproof material. This was the last wall of the cabin. Once it was completed and a door was installed, the construction was finally finished. His wife came to inspect the work. She remembered the last time she visited. Only the floor was done. She was amazed to see the house completed so quickly. Both were very satisfied with the inspection. Now they no longer have to constantly worry about their good neighbor coming to steal their food. Suddenly, the cold winter has descended upon Alaska. Female hunter Jody is taking her son deep into the mountains to hunt a North American reindeer. At the end of autumn, Jody caught a huge moose, which should have fed her family for a long time. However, they also share the meat with the elders and those without food in the village. So today, she and her son Denari are hunting a North American reindeer. They are in Alaska's White Mountains, searching in high-altitude areas. Jody is very familiar with this area and knows where reindeer have been active in past years. But today, visibility in the wilderness is very low. After half a day, they haven't found anything. Suddenly, a pile of remains catches the hunter's attention. The head is missing, but the carcass is still there with plenty of meat left. Local people and carnivores would not do this. It was likely poachers who did such a disgusting act for profit. Now, the meat can only be left for birds and scavengers. The way is white and indistinct, making it hard to distinguish between sky and ground. They must be vigilant against snow blindness, which could lead to getting lost in the wilderness and potentially fatal dangers. In such situations, those who can should wear goggles, and those who can't should squint to help protect their eyes. Jody's people have hunted on this land for thousands of years. Every time she comes here, she feels the presence of her ancestors. They walked the same paths, did the same things, and passed down ancient traditions. Although society continuously progresses, some people do not want to give up the old ways left by their ancestors. At the mountaintop, the view broadens, but Jody still can't see any reindeer. The animals also have a hard time in such cold weather, constantly searching for food to survive. This makes them likely to appear suddenly, which is very different from hunting moose. Hunters must constantly change hunting spots based on their experience, hoping to encounter a herd sooner. The wind on the mountain is strong, and the visibility is poor. Reindeer would not stay in such places. So, Jody and her son return to the forest. She notices some tracks on a nearby mountain, likely left by reindeer. Following these clues might lead to a discovery. Jody has been hunting here since she was a child and knows the migration patterns of reindeer very well. However, when luck is not on your side, even the most experienced hunter can come up empty. As the day darkens, it looks like they will be working late. People living in the wilderness hunt not for entertainment, but for survival. If you don't hunt, you go hungry. To sustain this lifestyle, they must maintain a delicate balance with nature. Just then, a reindeer appears. Jody quickly aims at a male, and with just one bullet, secures the long-sought prey. The hunt is successful, but the game must be processed on the spot before being dragged home. Following tradition, the first step is to remove the head and face it towards their home, signifying that its meat will feed her family. The reindeer is large and will provide plenty of meat. Jody will still share some with her elders, as is part of their cultural tradition. The fat on the reindeer's rump is a favorite among the Native Americans, especially the elders. Her young son prefers the nose and tongue of the reindeer. Although Denari is young, he has grown up watching his parents and understands the responsibilities a young person should bear for their family and community. Today, mother and son are fortunate. Despite a hard day in the mountains, they return home successful, fulfilling their mission. Meanwhile, in Gamble, Alaska, Daniel is taking his sons Chris and Chase out to sea to hunt walrus. They don't have a specific target. They hunt whatever they encounter. The villagers are very united, working together to live a self-sufficient life off the Bering Sea. Currently, thick ice is drifting from the north across the sea surface, which might carry walruses, and Daniel hopes there might be some bearded seals as well. There is a store in the village, but it is currently empty due to bad weather preventing planes from delivering supplies. Elderly residents or those unable to hunt face severe challenges from the cold and hunger. Therefore, the father and his sons are braving the Bering Sea to find large game to share with those in need. Large ice floes often harbor walruses, and sometimes polar bears are also brought along, posing both opportunities and dangers. If their boat gets stranded in the vast ocean, the hunters would be left without support. After searching for a long while, they haven't seen any walruses, polar bears, or even seals. As they proceed, the ice becomes thicker, which could endanger the boat's engine. If they don't find any game soon, they'll have to consider heading back. Just then, Daniel spots a flock of seabirds ahead. Upon closer observation, he realizes it's a large group of sea ducks. Since they can't catch larger game, hunting some birds is also viable. These birds live in the area year-round. Hunters cook and then dry them for long-term storage, to be eaten later with seal oil. Most of the time, sea ducks stay on inland cliffs, so encountering such a large group at sea is quite lucky. Catching game isn't always guaranteed, and they must accept empty-handed returns as well. Chris uses 8 shotgun shells and manages to get about 20 sea ducks. As hunters, they must not be greedy. Once they have enough, they stop. Back home, Daniel heads to the beach as the tide is going out. He collects seafood washed up on the shore to add to their dinner. People in Gamble gather food from the sea, facing scarce resources with ingenuity. The rare delicacies from the sea usually appear on the shore after the tide recedes, which are Daniel's family favorites. Accepting nature's gifts graciously is the wisest choice. Daniel recalls finding a small porpoise on the shore as a child. When he brought it home during a food shortage, his mother was nearly moved to tears. However, his parents didn't keep the food for themselves, but shared it with the village elders. According to local tradition, the first catch, whatever it may be, must be given to the elders. This practice has been passed down through generations and remains vivid in his memory. Before the tide came back in, he gathered plenty of seafood to take home for dinner with his wife. Before they ate, he and Chris visited his father-in-law to share today's catch of sea ducks with their family and elders who cannot hunt. Daniel knows his in-laws love this food, and they usually eat it with whale skin. Daniel and Chris's respectful actions are well regarded by the family. Receiving praise from his father-in-law makes them very happy. The entire village shares the food they work hard to obtain with those in need. If Daniel ever finds himself in need, he knows others will extend a helping hand. This tradition of mutual aid is destined to continue for generations. Back in Aksoyok, a Supiaq people's camp in southern Alaska, today Marvin is taking his son-in-law Green, hunting for ptarmigan. 12 years ago, Green moved here from Los Angeles after marrying Marvin's niece. As such, he enjoys various native rights. He fell in love with his beautiful wife and the life here, and for over a decade, He has been learning how to live off the land through hunting, with Marvin as his mentor. As traditional culture slowly fades, Marvin is eager to train the next generation of heirs. They ride an all-terrain vehicle across a country road to the hunting grounds. Aksoyak has not yet seen snow, leaving the area covered with dry yellow grass and bushes, making it easy to spot the ptarmigan, which have just turned white. Possibly the best time of year to hunt them. Not long into their walk in the wilderness, they spot their target. Green strikes several impressive poses, but just as he is about to shoot, the ptarmigan fly off prematurely, and despite his efforts, he misses. However, ptarmigan don't fly far, and following in the direction they flew should give them another chance. Indeed, their prediction is correct, and the ptarmigan reappear. This time, they choose to approach from downwind to minimize the impact of the strong winds on their shot. Yet, the first bullet still goes astray. Marvin advises him to aim slightly off in the opposite direction to compensate for the wind. And this time, Green is successful. Surviving in this land is not complicated, but it is not easy either. Ptarmigan only have some meat on their breasts, and unfortunately, Green's shot hits exactly there, ruining half of the breast meat. However, this isn't a big issue. They just need to shoot a few more. They continue their slow exploration, as ptarmigan could be anywhere. Soon, they find their second target of the day. When they stop, Green quickly shoots down the ptarmigan in front of him, and even manages a two-birds-with-one-stone shot, skewering two birds that were sitting side by side. A stroke of luck. However, their good fortune does not end there. The master and apprentice continue forward and come upon a small hill where they unexpectedly find a deer hiding in the bushes, a male, which hunters can legally hunt. However, they had only brought small-caliber shotguns suitable for birds, which would cause unnecessary suffering to larger game like deer. Therefore, Green needs to switch to a larger caliber, while Marvin stays to watch the game. Seeing his enthusiastic apprentice reminds Marvin of his own childhood. Facing the harsh wilderness life, his father never spoke disheartening words. Now, Marvin is passing on everything he learned from his father to Green. Armed with the larger caliber shotgun, the two stealthily climb the hill, getting closer to the deer to increase their chances of a successful shot. Perhaps due to nerves, Green misses the first shot, but the deer, merely startled, does not flee. Marvin hurriedly instructs him to reload, and this time, they successfully take down the deer. Green, who had never hunted such game before, is so thrilled he's nearly overwhelmed. From now on, he can handle such animals on his own. Now, the master and apprentice must climb the hill to find the deer they just downed. The deer is large enough to feed their family for a while. They need to gut the game immediately to prevent the meat from spoiling. From finding the game, to the hunt, and finally to processing, they have a complete hunting process, which the master teaches to his apprentice without reservation, deeply moving Green. Aside from his own parents, perhaps only Marvin has been so good to him. That evening, they cook a meal with the fresh meat. Previously, when Green lived in the city, he faced discrimination due to his skin color and poverty. Here, it is completely different. People do not judge someone based on wealth or skin color. As long as you are willing to learn and not lazy, you can carve out your own space. Hunting is the main way hunters gather food. Joel's family, who live near Lake Iliamna in Alaska, is also seeking food for the winter. His young daughter, who aspires to become an excellent hunter, was so shaken by her first experience of seeing the entire process from hunting to butchering that she couldn't eat her dinner. At Lake Iliamna in Alaska, Hunter Joel is teaching his young daughter how to use a shotgun. Training the next generation of hunters starts young. Before beginning formal shooting practice, safety comes first. The gun must never point at non-target animals or people, and should ideally be aimed upwards or towards an open area. Once this is understood, they can start the next stage. They draw a heart on a wooden board and show the girl how to use the shotgun. Lying on the ground, she uses the scope's crosshairs to lock onto the target. Joel demonstrates first, not wanting to frighten her on her first try. However, he underestimates her courage, Not only is she unafraid, she hits the target precisely. Now, they head into the forest together to look for food, as a hunter's ultimate goal is to sustain survival through hunting. In this icy wilderness, without hunting, there is no food, and the family would starve. Their target today is to hunt a few grouse for a hearty dinner that evening, as they had not caught any large game earlier this winter, making grouse one of their main food sources. On their way, an unfrozen river blocks their path, and with their current equipment, crossing is not possible. After searching, Joel finds a fallen dead tree across the river and decides to use it to cross, knowing that getting wet in the wilderness could be dangerous. The couple carefully helps their daughter to the other side and then continue their search. After half a day without seeing any grouse, the family is somewhat disappointed. However, they soon find feathers on the snow, signs that a carnivorous animal had hunted and eaten a grouse. Since these birds are social and tend to stay in groups, finding one usually means others are nearby. Joel takes this opportunity to show his daughter how hunters obtain food in the wild. Experiencing these things from a young age is crucial for becoming an excellent hunter later. However, with signs of predators nearby, Joel, concerned for his wife and daughter's safety, decides to go deeper into the forest alone. There, he finds a rabbit eaten by a predator, which he plans to tell his daughter about later, sure to excite her. Just as he considers searching further, a long-missed grouse suddenly appears on a tree ahead. Joel quickly aims and shoots, and the grouse falls from the tree, marking their first catch of the day. Before he can celebrate, he spots another grouse on a nearby tree. Seizing the opportunity, he takes his shotgun again and successfully secures the second bird. 2 grouse mean a very delicious dinner for the family of 3. Back home, Joel teaches his daughter how to process the caught game. They typically skin the grouse, discarding the skin and feathers, then remove the head, tail, innards, feet, and wings, keeping only the breast cavity and heart, the edible parts. Although his daughter witnessed and participated in the process, she is unable to eat, deeply impacted by learning how food reaches her plate for the first time. However, Joel and his wife will not stop there. They will continue to involve their daughter in hunting, believing that it won't be long before she fully adapts to this self-sufficient wilderness lifestyle. On the turbulent Koyukuk River, free driftwood from upstream floats by. Tig, a native Alaskan, selects the best logs to build a smokehouse at home. These logs quickly move downstream, aided by the river's current, requiring Tig to act swiftly to secure them. He ties the logs, pushes them to the back of the boat, away from the engine, and then drags them to the riverbank. With an all-terrain vehicle, he hauls them home. This process must be quick, or opportunities will be missed. Tig repeats this until he has enough wood. Recent heavy rains have raised the river level, pushing the driftwood downstream. While intercepting these logs appears easy, it is actually quite dangerous. A slight error could flip the boat. Thus, Tig always wears a life jacket for safety. If a log has large roots, he cuts them off in the water to ease transportation. The Koyukuk River is essentially the lifeline for the natives. They fish, gather wood, and the river serves as their highway to the outside world in all seasons, making hunting more efficient. Some logs are destined to drift downstream, blocked by trees along the way, creating good opportunities for Tig to collect them. He drags them home to have enough materials for building. He stops the boat over these logs, cuts the roots with a chainsaw, and continues to tow them home. Although there are many logs on the river, he adheres to the principle of stopping when he has enough, as others downstream also wait for these logs for building or heating. The smokehouse, meant for smoking meat, doesn't need to be aesthetically pleasing or large. Tig digs pits, fixes vertical posts, and installs beams on them. The indigenous people used smoking as their main food storage method before refrigerators. The structure of the building is informal and flexible. After securing 3 rows of posts, he connects them with wooden planks to enhance strength. The middle of the posts gets an additional beam. The top and walls are then covered, forming a basic smokehouse designed for ventilation to expel smoke. Tig goes fishing in the river to test the smoking effect of the fish. Accompanied by his wife, they head to their usual fishing spot. Many natives criticize commercial fishing for overfishing, which significantly impacts those who rely on the land. They can only catch certain fish like whitefish or sheefish. Any caught salmon must be released immediately. On their way home, Seeing the eroded riverbanks, they lament the changes in the permafrost. They cannot change nature, only adapt to its changes. They set a second fishing net in another tributary and wait for hours. When they check the nets, they find lampreys, which are not favored for their taste. The second fish is the same. After finding no whitefish in one net, they pin their hopes on the second, which thankfully yields a large sheefish, a decent catch, though not as tasty as whitefish. After catching a second sheefish, Tig processes the fish at camp, discarding heads, removing guts, slicing the flesh, and placing it in the smokehouse to dry over the fire. Throughout the summer, they fish and smoke the meat, helping their family of 9 survive the tough winter. 3 hunters are hunting eiders. They are native Alaskans who rely on nature's gifts for their food, which costs them nothing. Today, Tig is taking his 2 sons to Fish Lake, where waterfowl, having migrated with the change of seasons, are now gathering. These birds are the main food source for Tig's family of 9 during the spring. The route to Fish Lake is challenging, with numerous twists in the waterway and several beaver dams along the way, making the already narrow water paths even more difficult to navigate. Even Tig is unsure if he can successfully reach the lake, but he must try for his family's sake. Although hunting season has ended, meaning they cannot hunt beavers they see, they soon encounter a dam blocking their way. Fortunately, the path isn't completely blocked, and Tig powers through with a burst of speed. However, this isn't the only obstacle, as mud and aquatic plants also threaten to trap their boat. All 3 must keep a vigilant eye on the water ahead to avoid accidents. They soon come across a second, higher dam that traps their boat. With no other option, the trio gets into the water to push through. Overcoming these hurdles, they finally reach Fish Lake and immediately spot several waterfowl. Tig instructs his sons to practice shooting. Shooting a flying bird from a speeding boat is challenging, and the young men need plenty of practice to master this skill, essential for continuing their traditional hunting and fishing lifestyle. During the early spring goose hunting season, hunters can stay in shelters to lure prey close. However, the common ducks now prefer open waters, so they must approach by boat. At this time of year, most ducks are lean, with only the black eiders having any fat, making them the prime target. The initial hunting attempts are unsuccessful, with Tig's sons alternating shots without hitting a duck. While focused on finding new prey, a sudden thunderclap startles Tig. They hadn't noticed an approaching storm. For safety, they quickly return to shore where they have a temporary camp to shelter from the storm. The rain is brief, and they soon return to the lake. Tig quietly approaches the target, but his inexperienced children struggle to hit the birds. Fortunately, the ducks are plentiful, and occasionally a few fall. As failures accumulate, so does their experience. Eventually, Tig's second son successfully downs their first bird of the day, which lands on a patch of floating moss that is treacherously similar to quicksand. For safety, Tig lets his son stay on the boat while he retrieves the bird. By evening, they return to their temporary camp to have a meal. 1 duck isn't enough for 3, so they make a soup to at least satisfy their hunger. As Tig's sons grow more capable, he may soon step back, allowing them to hunt on their own. The growth of new strength will continue the local traditions. Cut off the head of a burbot, then slice the fish from the back into 2 halves. Next, change the knife and hang the fish on a rack to air dry. This fish meat is a major food source for the Alaskan natives during the summer. Today, Tig is taking his family to their fishing camp to provide for his 7 children. In the past, the river was abundant with salmon, easily sustaining the riverside communities. However, due to excessive commercial fishing at sea, the salmon have become scarcer. Consequently, the local fishing department banned the natives from fishing, making life particularly difficult for them. After several harsh years, the authorities have allowed the natives to catch certain types of fish again this year, slightly improving their situation. Upon arriving at the fishing camp, Tig instructs his family to stay briefly by the boat because bears are very active this season, and their camp might be hiding one. It has been over 2 years since their last visit, and the yard has overgrown with weeds and bushes. Once they ensure it's safe, the family begins to move around the yard. Bears visiting the fishing camp are common, but a surprise attack from one hiding in the bushes could be disastrous, especially for the children. Therefore, the first task for Tig and his family is to clear the yard of potential threats. After securing the area, they start checking the fishing nets, removing debris, and repairing any damages. Tig involves his children in each task, laying a solid foundation for their future. Once the nets are ready, they are neatly placed in a container for easy setup. Since working on the water is dangerous, Tig leaves the children at the camp. He and his wife, Louie, find a large eddy on the river. Eddies often form whirlpools where the water slows down, providing a resting spot for migrating salmon, making them easy to catch. Years of wilderness living have made the couple highly efficient. They quickly set the net in the water. Now, they must wait overnight and return tomorrow to see what they have caught, much like opening a mystery box. Overnight passed in what seemed like a moment. Tig and his wife, accompanied by their daughters, returned to the spot where they had set their fishing net, ready to share in the joy of a bountiful catch or the disappointment of finding nothing. From a distance, the net seemed still, but suddenly, it twitched. Tig and his wife knew immediately that they had caught something. They anchored their boat at the shore and lifted the net to find it contained the prized burbot, a fish that in previous years was often used as dog food but now considered a delicacy. Burbot can grow up to 1.5 meters long and only spawn once before dying, earning them the nickname motherly fish due to their challenging reproductive journey. Besides spawning, they also support many native communities along their migration paths. During spawning, burbot develop sharp teeth to protect themselves, making them tricky and potentially dangerous to catch. After loading the fish onto their boat, the family hurried back to their fishing camp to process their catch. Tig beheaded the burbot, sliced it along the back into 2 halves, changed his knife, and hung the fish on racks to air dry. This fish meat is a staple for the Alaskan natives during the summer. After processing their catch, the family returned to check their nets again. They need to catch a substantial amount of fish throughout the summer, not only for daily consumption but also to store for feeding the family during the winter. Today was a fortunate day. Not only did they catch burbot, but they also snagged a large Chinook salmon weighing about 20 to 30 pounds, filled with rhea, highly coveted delicacy for Tig's family. As they pulled up the net, a red-bodied king salmon also emerged. This species is still protected, so they had to release it back into the river to spawn and help its population grow. The community understands that respecting nature leads to reciprocal benefits. Perhaps in 5 years, these land-dependent natives could return to relying on this fish as a primary food source. A woman is teaching her child how to process wild burbot caught from the river. When they get tired, they fry a pan of Chinook salmon meat and roe for the family to enjoy a good meal. These fish are a main food source for Alaskan natives during the summer. Many years ago, Tig's ancestors discovered this resource-rich area, setting up fishing and hunting traps to sustain their lineage. Even in modern society, nature remains their most precious asset. The couple has managed to raise 7 children relying on this land. Unless something unexpected happens, this land and lifestyle will be passed down to future generations. Although fish is delicious, eating it frequently can become monotonous and lacks nutritional variety. Therefore, Tig takes his son into the mountains to hunt a goat, aiming to diversify their diet. The mountain goats here are exclusive game for the natives, and outsiders are not permitted to hunt them. Known for being docile herbivores, goats are actually much harder to hunt than carnivorous animals, mainly because they live on steep mountaintops, making them difficult to locate. Tig and his son Evan were already out of breath by the time they reached halfway up the mountain. The journey is not only challenging but also requires vigilance against wolves and bears, the dominant predators of the forest. The path is littered with loose stones, and they must keep their distance to avoid potentially fatal injuries from falling rocks. After a grueling climb, Tig and Evan reached a nearby hilltop. The breathtaking view was there, but the hunters were not in the mood to appreciate it. In the past, large groups would hunt together and share the catch with the community. That grand sight no longer exists. During their search, Evan spotted 2 goats through his binoculars, a critical first step in hunting. They needed to identify their location and stealthily approach them to have a chance at a successful hunt. The distance and rugged terrain meant that by the time they reached the goats, they could have already moved on. The best strategy was to predict the goats' path and get ahead of them. Along the way, any edible berries they found were also not to be missed. When they reached the summit and saw the near vertical cliffs, both felt a sense of trepidation. Even for seasoned hunters armed with rifles, hunting goats could be life-threatening. Tig's brother had died on a similar hunt over a decade ago, and the memory still haunted him. Now, returning to these cliffs with his son brought mixed emotions. After searching the area, they found no sign of the goats, indicating that their quarry had moved on. As night fell, they planned to set up a tent nearby to venture further the next day. However, a storm raged all night. When they awoke, everything was soaked, and fog formed by the moisture completely obscured the mountain where they had spotted the goats. Continuing the climb in such conditions was too risky. Prioritizing their safety, he immediately directed his son Evan to fetch the scoop net. They cornered one and successfully captured it. Evan twisted the goose's neck single-handedly. The meat from this goose would provide dinner for two. Today's outing was not primarily for bird hunting. Tig and Evan's real target was a bear. They were in Alaska's Yukon region, where Tig hunts a black bear every autumn. The bear fur could be sold for money, and its meat could feed his family of 9. Although bear hunting season also opens in winter, it involves entering bear dens, making it more challenging than hunting in other seasons. Despite the abundance of black bears in Alaska, finding a suitable one is not easy. They headed to areas rich in berries and fish, where bears were likely to be found. Speeding along the Canute River, they arrived at a clearing where Tig often saw bears catching salmon or foraging on the hillside. Fresh bear tracks on the riverbank indicated their size and presence, along with tracks from frequent gray wolf visitors. After searching the area for a long time without spotting any game, they returned to their boat and headed to a large canyon where bears like to eat berries and dig for roots. On the way, they encountered some geese. During summer, these geese molt, rendering them unable to fly for a period, making them easy targets for hunters who need only a scoop net, not a gun, to catch them. Having brought no food on their bear hunting trip, the goose became their meal, easily providing them with sustenance. As they continued their journey, the usually ubiquitous black bears were nowhere to be seen. After September, bears prepare for hibernation, making them even harder to find than now. Seeing no signs of bears along the water, Tig decided to try their luck in the mountains of Gogol, where bears primarily eat berries, giving their fat and meat a sweeter taste. If successful, the children would particularly enjoy this bear. Armed with rifles and necessary gear, they entered the woods, a territory ruled by predators, where hunters must proceed stealthily. Climbing steep slopes, they found bear feces that were purple and somewhat liquid, indicating a diet of blueberries rather than fish. The taste of such a bear would undoubtedly be excellent. Now, they carefully searched the area for more clues following the bear's trail. They found bear fur on small trees, indicating the bears had been scratching themselves there. All signs suggested their quarry was nearby, and they pressed on towards the mountaintop. However, before finding the bear, they stumbled upon a discarded can, likely left by recreational hunters. Such litter could negatively impact the land. As a native who had lived off this land for generations, and whose children would do the same, Tig felt compelled to protect it by removing the trash, thus safeguarding his family's future. Reaching the mountaintop after a strenuous climb, they still saw no sign of the bear. Using binoculars, they continued their search until dark, but found nothing. Staying outdoors at night is dangerous, so they decided to leave and return to their camp. Not finding game is a common outcome in hunting, but hunters do not get discouraged. They believe that with continued effort, success will eventually come. With no reliable food source, Tig's family had to make do with fish and small game until the end of autumn when the moose hunting season finally opened. A single moose, weighing over 1,000 pounds, could sustain a family for a long time. Today, Tig brought his 2 older daughters to the upper reaches of the South Fork River, near Fish Lake, where he had frequently seen moose during previous hunting and fishing trips. They hoped for better luck this time to bring back enough food for the family. Upon reaching the hunting ground, Tig took out a horn and began imitating the call of a moose, then listened intently for any response from the game. If there was no movement, they would call several times more. After repeating this for a while, they finally concluded that there were no moose in the marsh, so they returned to their boat to head to the next hunting site. Along the way, they keenly observed the shoreline, as moose are fond of water and sometimes swim in the river or forage along its banks. Their persistence paid off when a male moose finally appeared. However, just as the father and daughters got excited about their find, the noise from the boat's engine scared the moose into hiding. They had to stop the boat, go ashore, and continue mimicking the moose calls, hoping to lure it out. But whether the moose had run off or was deliberately hiding, Tig heard no movement in the forest. This hunt was the daughters' first moose expedition. If successful, according to tradition, they would need to share the moose meat with the elders in the community. After a chase, they found the moose's tracks and followed them to a marsh, where they stopped and tried to attract the moose with a loudspeaker. Despite their efforts, no animal appeared. As it grew later and colder, the children began to struggle with the dropping temperatures. Tig decided to build a fire to keep them warm and rested. After getting his daughters settled, he climbed a nearby large tree to gain a better vantage point, hoping to increase his chances of spotting the moose by calling from a higher position and projecting the sound further. However, as time ticked by, he did not achieve the desired result. Meanwhile, a storm was approaching. Staying in that location was not conducive to hunting, and they would all end up soaking wet. Therefore, Tig decided it was best to quickly return to their camp. On the second day, the three of them set off early in the boat, searching along the river. Tig was at the helm while his daughters watched each bank. If they spotted any tracks left by game, they would stop the boat and go ashore to investigate. Based on the shape and size of the footprints, they could infer the size and even the gender of the animal. The tracks were very fresh, likely just a few hours old, suggesting they weren't far from the moose. However, moose are not only keenly aware of their surroundings, but also excel at camouflage, making them difficult to find. As Tig and his daughters were at a loss, Tig suddenly spotted a moose on the riverbank. Although it was an unhuntable female with a calf, where there are females, a male moose is likely not far away. Tig tried to confuse it with moose calls, and this time, it worked. The much-anticipated game appeared. He quickly got into position, aimed, and fired. Due to the rocking of the boat, however, he couldn't be sure if he hit the target. They hurried ashore to look for blood traces but found none, only the footprints of the fleeing moose. Although the hunting failure was disappointing, they still had a chance. As long as they kept trying, success was bound to come. Now, with winter approaching and without those hundreds of pounds of deer meat, the family of 9 would face an exceedingly tough time. Therefore, the hunt for moose must continue. This time, his wife Louie joined him. The couple worked well together, often achieving unexpected results. As natives who relied on the land, they had many preparations to make before winter, with stocking their freezer with food being a top priority. Due to summer fishing restrictions, hunting a moose was the ideal choice. Their family of 9 needed at least 2 to 3 pounds of deer meat daily. At mealtime, the children devoured their food like little wolves, leaving nothing behind. If they couldn't catch a moose, Tig didn't know how they would manage. Both Tig and Louie knew they couldn't give up, especially now. As long as they worked hard, they were certain to succeed. Upon reaching the hunting area, they climbed a slope to a marsh where the game often appeared. Tig began imitating moose calls, hoping for a response. This autumn had been particularly unlucky for Tig's family, nearly catching nothing, so they were desperate. Real hunting not only requires skill but also a great deal of luck. Just then, a crow flew overhead. In their culture, this bird symbolizes luck. Crows are incredibly smart and sometimes even lead hunters to game hidden in the dense forest. If the hunters are successful, the crows also get their share of the bounty. Following the direction indicated by the crow, Tig and Louie started their search. Surprisingly, when Tig mimicked the moose calls, there was an immediate response. Each time he called, the moose responded. Based on the sound, it was a male moose. To avoid startling the moose, they tried to stay still to minimize noise. They tested the wind direction with a lighter and found they were upwind, making it easy for the moose to detect them. Using the loudspeaker now elicited no response. The hope that had just ignited in them was dashed again. After a full day, they ended up busy with nothing to show for it. On the second day, Tig and his wife returned to the river. Every year they prayed for better days and easier catches, but things always seemed to go against their wishes. Moose, usually plentiful, became scarce as soon as the hunting season opened. Despite knowing the difficulties of hunting, these natives never gave up. Now, they were heading to a small lake frequented by moose. Last year, Tig had successfully lured a large male moose there and hoped for similar luck this year. Unexpectedly, just after Tig mimicked a few moose calls, he heard movement in the water. Upon closer inspection, it was a male moose. The sight instantly spiked his adrenaline. Using branches as a makeshift stand, he quickly fired 2 shots at the game. Tig was so thrilled at the prospect of a successful hunt that he didn't even notice he had left his wife behind as he went to track the game. On the way there, Louie came across a bear den, which frightened her so much that she quickly ran off. When she found Tig, he was standing in the water, lost in thought. There was no game, no blood, another failed attempt. As the main provider for his family, Tig felt immense pressure. Failing to secure food for the winter meant his family faced starvation. Despite the setbacks this autumn, survival dictated that he must return and try again tomorrow. On the third day, Tig was still troubled by yesterday's hunt. He had aimed directly at the moose and couldn't understand why he missed. Suddenly, He wondered if there was a problem with his rifle. After recalibrating it, he discovered that was indeed the issue. With the rifle fixed, the couple set out again, following the same process as before. They headed to the small lake and used calls to lure the moose. The freshly fallen trees and new droppings indicated that the game was nearby. Today, Tig climbed a tree again and successfully located a male moose. With the sound of a gunshot, Tig excitedly ran down from the tree. After a second shot, the moose fell to the ground and lay still. The challenging hunt had finally ended successfully, and Tig felt a great weight lifted off his shoulders. Despite the joy, there was still much work to be done. The two of them needed to butcher the massive animal and transport it to the boat in parts. As Tig carried the meat on his back, he felt a deep sense of reassurance. They could leave the moose's innards, but the head with its large antlers had to be taken. They could fetch a good price. Not all natives are lucky enough to hunt a moose. In fact, most rely on smaller game to survive. In Bethel, Alaska, Avery and Gage were on their way to the hunting grounds to catch a few beavers, helping ensure their family had enough to eat. The two brothers had lived a self-sufficient wilderness lifestyle from a young age, supporting their family and the elders in their community. Life here involved no mortgages or cars, nor a 9-to-5 job. Their only real pressure was the constant search for food. To outsiders, the brothers' life seemed like an adventure story. They traveled by boat or plane to hunt and fish, all to ensure their family was well fed. The brothers are authentic Yupik people. 50 years ago, their people were prohibited from speaking their language. Now, they have reclaimed their heritage. Not only can they speak their language freely, but Gage also became a teacher of the language and Yupik cultural traditions while studying at Stanford University. There's a saying, brothers united are a force to be reckoned with. Surviving in the dangerous wilderness is tough, but by relying on each other and working together, they've become the mainstays of their family. They trust each other implicitly, regardless of the dangers they face. Today's task was hunting beavers. They took their boat to their grandfather's private land, a place abundant with beavers. They had to keep their eyes peeled for any sign of them. Avery was the first to spot what he thought were beavers on the shore and quickly alerted Gage to prepare for the hunt. However, it turned out to be a mistake. They were ducks, not beavers. Mistakes happen, and they took the opportunity to tease each other, their way of having fun. The area was rich in wildlife. Not far along, they spotted a moose and its calf by the river. As a staple for the natives, such large game represented hope for their future livelihood. However, today they were focused on beavers, not just enjoying the scenery. They needed to feed themselves to survive in this land. The brothers moved to a tributary where the river was narrower, making it easier to find beaver dens. Sure enough, they soon found a large beaver lodge with fresh branches on it, indicating the presence of their quarry. They maneuvered their boat over the lodge and climbed on to search. Aside from the fresh branches, there were no other clues. Avery used the paddle to slap the water, hoping the noise would scare the beavers into fleeing. The trick worked. A beaver surfaced nearby. The brothers quickly returned to the boat and moved to where the beaver appeared. When it surfaced again, Gage aimed and pulled the trigger, but unfortunately, he missed. The startled beaver then chose very concealed spots to surface for air, making the dense riverside bushes their main target area. Indeed, they spotted some movement, but upon closer inspection, it was just two muskrats. Their family only eats beaver meat, so they did not pursue the muskrats. They moved on to another lodge and soon found a beaver swimming nearby. Despite the rocking boat causing their first two shots to miss, the third trigger pull finally secured their first catch. The meat was enough to feed their family for several days, and the fur could be made into a valuable hat worth hundreds of dollars. Currently, the local area was under a salmon fishing ban. They needed to catch another beaver to safely get through this awkward period of food shortage. Soon, the Yupik hunters spotted another beaver, aimed carefully, and at the right moment, pulled the trigger. With the second beaver of the day secured, Gage and Avery happily returned home. Due to the heat, they immediately processed the game. In Akiachak, Alaska, native Marvin is gathering seafood at low tide. It's night, and no one competes for the seafood washed ashore. Today, he's mainly searching for green sea urchins, called utuk in their language. As a child, these were plentiful and large, filling a bucket in 20 minutes. Due to global warming, their numbers and size have diminished. Marvin wonders if they'll be available in decades to come. As the blizzard intensifies and visibility worsens, Marvin decides it's time to finish for the day. The seafood he gathered isn't enough for a feast, so he returns before the next low tide. He lights a fire to keep warm. Marvin, once a heavy drinker, nearly lost everything but turned his life around and now teaches traditional ways to the younger generation. As the tide recedes, he resumes gathering sea urchins. The dog with him, nicknamed Conch, and not his own, follows him around, having been fed by him often. This is about survival and redemption for Marvin. He feels at peace in this primitive setting and plans to live here until his end. After collecting sea urchins, it's time to head home and enjoy the delicacy. Handling sea urchins is tricky due to their spiky exterior. Marvin cracks one open with a knife and eats the roe raw, which is fresh and sweet. According to him, the flavor sweetens after a couple of days. He recalls his grandparents consuming every part of the sea urchin, including the black innards, with bread. In the Yukon River area, Jody's family faced an unusual winter with unprecedented snow and wind. Facing such unstable weather, they prepared early to adapt and make necessary adjustments. Today's tasks were many. They needed to shovel snow off the roof, gather herbs for treating coughs, and fetch water from the river. The A-frame roof was very slippery, so while shoveling, they secured Jim with a safety rope anchored in the opposite direction of the house. With no medical facilities nearby, safety was their top priority. On the other side of the roof, lacking a proper anchor, they tied the safety rope to a snowmobile. After clearing the snow, they took a break with some hot tea. Then Jody ventured into the forest alone to find a medicinal herb for her cough. She found a common-looking branch that served as her remedy, though she didn't know its name. She only knew it eased her symptoms when brewed as tea. These natives have lived here for thousands of years, familiar with many herbs and able to treat almost any ailment. Tonight, she would boil water with the branch. In the deep winter, fetching water involved shoveling thick snow and drilling through ice for clean river water. Today, they used an ice auger for a quicker process. Their daily water usage for drinking, cooking, bathing, and feeding the dog required at least 10 gallons, so they were always ready to fetch water from the river. The upper Yukon River, free from industrial pollution, provided clear and clean water. Exhausted but fulfilled after a day's work, Jody spent her evenings crafting small artifacts. Previously, her husband had caught several large gray wolves, respected as fellow predators. Today, she used their claws to make traditional jewelry, preferring natural and animal materials over luxurious diamonds or gold. Indigenous privileges in harsh climates, more than just money. In the remote areas of Alaska, in Gamble, Alaska, Daniel stands on his rooftop, not to enjoy the view, but to look for marine prey. He spots a walrus on the distant ice but feels indifferent, not out of disinterest in hunting, but because the distance and the ice-clogged harbor make setting out impossible. This year, his family struggles greatly with frequent food shortages. In previous years, their freezer would have been packed with various meats. Now, his only option is to find a place to catch crabs. Before setting out, Daniel decides to make a large ice pick. Although available in stores, the commercial ones are too small and impractical for his needs. Together with his son Chris, he crafts a large ice pick suited to their fishing and crabbing needs, capable of breaking ice to clear a path for their boat. Prepared, they head to the crabbing area on the ice, but a newly formed crack blocks their path. Pursuing crabs over the unstable ice could lead to danger if the ice suddenly drifts. Although they can't catch crabs, an opportunity arises to hunt another animal, the polar bear, with fresh tracks spotted on the ground. Although the bear is not large, finding one indicates the presence of more. Living off nature requires adapting to circumstances. Polar bears, with their natural camouflage, are hard to spot against the snow. Hunters must observe carefully from high points. As the cold season nears its end, polar bears migrate north, offering a chance to solve the food crisis at home. The white fur can also be made into gloves and clothing. According to local customs, the first person to spot game claims it. This rule could cause disputes in more populated areas. Previously, the area was teeming with polar bears, a sight no longer common due to climate-induced ice reduction. After searching for a while, Chris suddenly notices a pile of snow move. Undoubtedly a polar bear. He quickly follows, but the animal disappears without a trace. Near a temporary camp, the bear leaves numerous footprints and even damages a house. As the wind strengthens and visibility worsens, Chris must return home before the weather deteriorates further. Although they didn't catch the polar bear, the warming weather will soon melt the ice in the harbor, allowing hunters to band together and hunt walruses at sea. In Alaska's Iliamna Lake, hunter Joel is digging through thick ice to fish for his family. As a child, just drilling a hole would yield endless fish. But now, fishing has become very challenging due to environmental changes and increasing predators. Even catching a common lake trout relies on luck. After chiseling over half a meter deep, water finally appears. Joel uses aged salmon eggs to bait the trout, attracting fish from several camps around. Before leaving, he places a branch over the hole to mark its location for his return. As he prepares to drill a second hole, he spots a lone wolf nearby, posing a serious threat to his family and dogs. Due to excessive cover, Joel quickly loses sight of the wolf. To eliminate the risk, he follows the wolf, which reappears but is beyond effective shooting range. Joel watches helplessly as it disappears. He generally lives by a rule of not killing unless necessary, but the wolf's proximity to his home is alarming. Following the tracks into the forest, Joel discovers the wolf's feeding site, not on a rabbit, but on a lynx. This is the brutal reality of predator interactions, where the victor eats and the defeated becomes food. It seems the wolf has eaten and returned to the forest. If it comes near his home again, Joel knows he must take action. What was supposed to be a fishing day turns into wolf hunting. Returning to the spot where he placed the salmon eggs, Joel finds them all eaten, suggesting there might be fish below. He pulls out his fishing rod and begins fishing, but after a long wait, catches nothing, likely scared off by the ice breaking. With no other option, he decides to return the next day to continue fishing. Life here is tough, and adapting requires the right mindset. In the Yukon River region of Alaska, the annual trapping season has arrived. Hunter Jim is boiling water to wax and resin his traps with spruce resin, masking human scents. Jim, who began trapping at the age of 10, is now an experienced trapper. Fur is crucial for their survival, as insufficient warmth during the cold winter can lead to frostbite or hypothermia. Today, the family has divided their hunting tasks. Jim and his son head downstream to trap marten, while Jody ventures upstream to target a wolverine. The family splits up to cover more ground. Jim first clears a fallen tree before setting traps to prevent injuries. He uses rotten salmon fins as bait, known for their pungent smell, and secures the trap to a small tree, camouflaging it with branches to keep birds from stealing the bait. Meanwhile, Jody discovers marten tracks, but ignores them as she focuses on wolverine. She notices a snow-covered tree, hollow, perfect for setting a wolverine trap. Recalling her father's use of a fire to captivate a wolverine's curiosity, she replicates the tactic by lighting a small fire inside the hollow and sets a noose trap with the same aged salmon used by her husband. She camouflages the entrance with branches and sprinkles some blood to confuse the predator, planning to return in a few days to check the trap. During this time, she uses stockpiled furs at home to make traditional Gwich'in garments, not only for personal use, but she also sells some for a good profit. With colder weather approaching, she crafts a pair of soft leather boots with a moose hide sole, canvas upper, and lining to wear on her hunting trips. She finishes the boots overnight to wear them before the temperature drops further. Deep snow in winter means the soft soles won't be uncomfortable. After a long night, it's time to check the traps. Jim and his son find their trap empty. To increase the chances of success, Jim plans to use more fish oil to intensify the scent and attract prey. Trapping requires patience and resilience as success is often limited. Jim now relies on his wife's efforts. Jody, wearing her newly made boots, heads to the wolverine trap. Catching even one or two could secure their needs for food and clothing. However, reality is harsh. The bait is gone, but no catch. It seems that foxes or martens are to blame, even marking the territory with urine. A few days earlier, she had set bait and camouflage at a small tree, placing the trap at its base. Likely, the animal that stole the bait was too light to trigger the trap. Jody resets the trap, hoping for a new opportunity. In Gamble on St. Lawrence Island, the annual hunting season has started. Young hunters are refilling collected spent casings, while the older hunters are sharpening their knives and spear tips. It has been 3 months since they last had fresh walrus meat. They plan to go out to sea tomorrow to hunt some. It's been 3 months since they last tasted fresh walrus meat, and they plan to hunt some tomorrow. The local indigenous community relies on hunting for sustenance. A male walrus can reach nearly 5 meters in length and weigh up to 3 tons. If Daniel's family successfully hunts one, the entire village will share in the bounty. Chris cannot join this hunt as his newborn child is ill, so the task of harpooning falls to his younger brother Chase, who is excited because participating in a walrus hunt is considered a rite of passage into adulthood. The harpooner bears significant responsibility, stationed at the forefront of the boat, vigilant of ocean currents, ice conditions, and sea movements. For Chase, this role is an honor, and he is determined to persevere through any hardships. The next day, they arrive at the seaside. Chase's cousin is also called to assist. The 3 of them head out to sea, finding a suitable spot in the icy waters to scout for walruses. Daniel spots the target first and signals the young men to enter hunting mode. The walrus is close, but the rocking boat makes it difficult to aim, causing them to miss good opportunities. Walruses, being mammals, will surface for air after diving, requiring the hunters to patiently wait and observe, ready to act swiftly when the walrus reappears. Unfortunately, their luck is poor. The prey is right in front of them, yet they can't manage to hit it. They work from morning until evening without success. Considering the village's meat shortage, however, as dependable hunters, they cannot afford to give up. The next day, Daniel leads another expedition to sea, this time with his older son, Chris, who has more experience hunting walruses. To aid in their search, the group climbs onto an ice floe for a better view. The shifting currents briefly allow for hunting, but could force them to return to shore if they change direction. They spot their target from afar, but must wait patiently for the right moment to act due to ice barriers, which could potentially trap them. As the ice breaks up slightly, they rush towards the walrus, which cleverly dives back into the sea, evading capture again. This hunt requires immense patience, testing even the most resilient hunters. So far, they have only spotted the walrus in the water, where hunting is significantly more challenging than on ice. Additionally, the large lung capacity of male walruses allows them to dive deeper and travel further, increasing the difficulty of the hunt. When the walrus surfaces again for air, they attempt to pursue it, only to find their engine clogged with ice. They quickly clear the ice and rush after the walrus, but the currents suddenly shift, causing the scattered ice to reconvene. If trapped, they would have to wait for rescue from family. With no other choice, they must return to shore and wait for another opportunity to head out to sea. The next day, Daniel led another expedition out to sea, determined not to return without a walrus. Given the walrus's crucial role as a primary food source in their traditional lifestyle, failing to secure a catch this season would mean facing hunger. Suddenly, a walrus appeared, and they quickly pursued it. Despite several close attempts, they struggled to make a successful hit. Finally, an opportunity presented itself. The shooters on the boat fired one after another, turning the seawater red. The job wasn't done yet. Chris needed to harpoon the walrus, attaching a buoy to prevent it from sinking. Unfortunately, his first attempt missed, and the injured walrus took the chance to dive deep. However, clearly weakened, it couldn't stay submerged for long. When it resurfaced, the hunters accurately harpooned it. After days of effort, Daniel's team finally secured a walrus. The catch was so heavy that it took tremendous effort to tie the massive animal to their boat. Back in the village, the people anxiously awaited, unsure if they would have meat that day. Their joy was immense when they saw the hunters returning loaded with their catch. Now, everyone's help was needed to haul the giant beast from the sea. The walrus was then cut into smaller pieces for distribution, with some parts traditionally returned to nature as a sign of respect for the animal. With everyone in dire need of food, only through mutual help and teamwork could they aspire to a better life. Seeing everyone fed made Daniel very happy. He hoped this way of life could continue indefinitely. Some hunters' ultimate dream isn't a fierce wild animal, but a docile and delicious goat. In Akshiok, located on the southern side of Kodiak Island, Alaska, respected native Marvin is taking his nephew Justin to hunt a goat today. Many don't understand why hunting a gentle goat is considered a top goal for many hunters. It's not about the ferocity of the animal, but the challenging environment of the hunt. To avoid predators, goats usually live in high-altitude mountain areas, with cliffs and perennial snow, making them difficult to spot. Goats move effortlessly on these terrains, whereas bipedal hunters find it challenging. Hunting usually takes several days, or you might not even catch a glimpse of the animals. The island is home to many bears whose paths often cross with the goats, requiring extra caution during the hunt. Marvin and Justin drove for hours against the cold, damp wind to Sarua Bay, where a friend's hunting cabin provided a perfect shelter with a stove for heating and lights. Hunting on steep mountain paths is too much for Marvin's age and physical condition, so Justin must undertake the journey alone. The rugged path is difficult, marked with bear tracks, making Justin both the hunter and the hunted. As he ascends, fog begins to envelop him. The goats, being white, blend almost perfectly with the clouds. The snowy areas not only bring a sudden drop in temperature, but also make it harder to spot the quarry. From below, Marvin, with a telescope, closely monitors Justin's movements. The changing wind and clouds indicate an approaching snowstorm. Unable to communicate, Marvin can only worry. Justin has reached the snowy area and is climbing towards a small summit, enveloped in fog and now snow, causing Marvin to lose sight of him. The conditions are unfavorable for hunting, but Justin wants to persist. It's a tough challenge and has been his dream, so he pushes forward. The weather is the biggest issue now. Visibility, initially clear, dramatically decreases a short distance later. With no other choice, Justin must descend the mountain and wait for another opportunity. The next day, they head to Olga Bay, where Justin had previously seen goats. After some searching, they spot their target in a steep canyon. Spotting the goat is just the first step. A careful plan is needed due to the cliff-ridden terrain. They dock their boat and start observing the mountain. The drifting boat makes noises, alerting the goats. To avoid giving away their position entirely, Marvin drives the boat away to distract the goats. This tactic of misdirection works, allowing Justin to avoid the goats' gaze. Approaching them is no easy task. The steep slopes alone seem exhausting. Along the way, Justin finds a tuft of white hair, indicating he might be very close to his target. Using his binoculars, he sees that the two goats have turned into a group, all within shooting range. Prepared for this moment, he takes his shot, and it's successful. The goat falls near the cliff's edge, almost beyond reach. He carefully packs the goat and returns to the boat. Hunting a goat in 2 days is quite efficient, and with their goal achieved, they happily return home. This is Allakaket, Alaska. To take his 7 children hunting for tiger, Tiger plans to build a small cabin on a sled. For this purpose, he even purchased a chainsaw. With the right tools, they quickly assembled the frame. Although the area is full of trees, ready-made lumber and plywood are quite expensive. To increase the cabin's light, Tiger designed windows into the structure. After installing a wooden door and fitting the windows with glass, the cabin was placed on the sled, creating a special vehicle just for the kids. Following the nomadic traditions of his ancestors, they moved to different locations with the seasons. Now in spring, Tiger plans to take his family downriver to their fishing camp, which is also part of their family territory. After organizing the children, dogs, and gear, they set off. Their destination is South Fork, 33 miles away, which usually takes about 3 to 4 hours by vehicle. However, not long into the journey, the motorcycle's check engine light came on. Tiger checked and concluded it was likely a piston issue, which he couldn't fix quickly. Given the rugged road and strong winds, it was too risky to potentially strand his family in the wilderness, so they had to turn back. The next day, Tiger borrowed his uncle's snowmobile and headed to their hunting grounds again. After a few hours of a bumpy ride, they finally arrived at their destination. Starting tomorrow, their hunting life would officially begin. Iliamna Lake has entered spring, and hunter Joel is taking his loyal dog to hunt birds on the lake. Living off the land requires adapting to seasonal changes, knowing what animals to hunt and when, and adhering to both natural laws and regulations. Joel has lived in Pedro Bay for most of his life. The harsh environment has made everyone here as tough as warriors. As a modern Athabascan, he joined the Marine Corps in his youth and traveled almost around the world. After retiring, he returned to Alaska without hesitation and never wanted to leave again. Recently, temperatures have risen and the snow is melting quickly, turning the lake surface into slush. Despite the risks, he ventures onto the lake to hunt for food. After crossing a dangerous area, he spots several ptarmigans hiding in the bushes and gives chase. Although he reveals his position in the process, fortunately, ptarmigans can't run far. He catches up with them again, and finally bags one for dinner. However, this is not enough. He needs to store some to feed his family. Other nearby ptarmigans, startled by him and his dog, have fled and are now out of reach. Joel takes a moment to process the ptarmigan. He only eats the breast meat. The rest goes to his dogs. Then, they move on to another area, which used to be a dog sledding trail. Before motorized vehicles, it served as a highway between villages. Due to years of neglect, the trail is nearly unusable, but now it's a good place to look for game. Joel quickly spots a grouse and successfully takes it down. Before he can celebrate, a second grouse flies into a nearby tree. Despite some scrambling, he manages to shoot it too. Sounds of other grouses flapping their wings nearby suggest more opportunities. After some searching, he bags another one. In one day, 3 grouses and a ptarmigan make for a very good haul. In the evening, he builds a fire and enjoys a small barbecue with the meat. For Joel, life here is 10,000 times better than in the city. The wilderness is not only his home, but also his final resting place. In Chivak, Alaska, the elderly Johan is teaching his grandson survival skills to ensure the survival of their indigenous community. They are legally entitled to use resources from rivers, oceans, and land. However, surviving in this beautiful but harsh environment often involves life and death situations, requiring constant readiness. To prepare his grandson to thrive in this land, Johan began training him at the age of 12. As long as he is capable, Johan continues the training. In the extreme cold, he teaches not to expose bare hands, as they can freeze within 2 minutes. If cold, he suggests running to warm up. A low cloud layer on the horizon signals an approaching storm, prompting them to hurry home or find shelter. Johan then teaches his grandson how to build a simple but effective temporary shelter. Even with this temporary protection, he warns against falling asleep recklessly, as one might not wake up. If someone passes by, he should know to wave his coat to signal for help. This training is Johan's way of expressing his love for his grandson. After the training, they attend to practical matters. The area is a junction of rivers and lakes, where Johan has set fish traps. About a week later, they are in luck, having caught several pounds of blackfish. Learning how to obtain food in the wild is also part of the survival lesson. Johan insists that his grandson not only learn these skills, but also pass them on to the next generation. As the sun sets, they reset the traps and head home, looking forward to enjoying the catch for dinner. Johan's wife, Teresa, handles the cooking. Due to their age, they follow a healthy diet of boiling food with little salt and oil. However, the taste is something they might wonder about. Here on the edge of Alaska, in Gamble on St. Lawrence Island, native Daniel is hunting at sea with his son and daughter for survival. Every spring, seals and walruses migrate northward, giving them the last chance to hunt these animals near their home. They quietly wait on an ice floe for their prey to appear. Daniel spots the target first, and the trio immediately sets off in pursuit. Experienced hunter Chris accurately hits the target, securing a bearded seal weighing over 100 pounds. The fat from the seal is essential food for surviving the extreme cold. This past winter, their village caught a whale, compared to 5 at the same time last year. The current catch is insufficient to meet the villagers' meat needs for the summer, so hunters like Daniel must continue hunting. Daniel's daughter, Nicole, 22, had left for 4 years to live elsewhere, but after a full circle, she returned. Only this wilderness makes her feel at home. One seal is not enough to satisfy the village's needs, so they must continue searching for more game. Although there is a store in Gamble that sells food, the prices are exorbitantly high, and stockouts are frequent. As a modern hunter, Daniel is not only preserving traditions, but also providing free food for everyone's table. After some time searching, a young walrus appears, and Chris skillfully takes it down. To prevent the prey from sinking, they attach a buoy to it. With a seal and a young walrus secured, they distribute the catch to the village, ensuring several meals for everyone. This, perhaps, is the greatest honor for a professional hunter. According to ancestral rules, before processing the game, they must destroy its eyeballs. Otherwise, they believe the hunter himself will go blind. They know it's superstitious but continue the practice as a tradition, showing respect for their ancestors. In the central part of the Domain River, Igor, native Jody, is dressing up his son Deneric for his first hunting trip, making it a special occasion. Winter hunting for moose is more challenging than in the fall. Although many tracks are visible, they haven't spotted any moose. So, they decide to wait at a spot frequented by the animals. Jim builds a shelter out of snow for hiding, which helps avoid the cold wind and keeps them hidden from the game. Whether they will see a moose depends on their luck. After waiting a long time and seeing nothing, they decide to change their strategy. Jim asks his son to quickly circle the hunting ground to see if he can spot anything. Deneric sets off on a snowmobile and finds branches nibbled by moose in the bushes. He stands on the snowmobile to look around. Many young people have moved to the city, but he prefers the quiet and simplicity of the wilderness. Thus, staying here and embracing these traditional cultures seems to be his destiny. Seeing no movement, he has to leave, but deep snow traps him in a large pit. Jim rushes to rescue him. Without help, Deneric would have been in trouble. They end the day without any catch, and with a damaged snowmobile. Before dark, they head home, as nothing is more important than safety. The next day, Deneric has gone to help the elders, so the task of hunting moose has been assigned to Jody and her husband. They reach the hunting ground and separate, wearing snowshoes. Jody takes a downwind position, while Jim is upwind. With the noisy dogs, they hope to startle the moose out of the bushes. Indeed, Jody spots the animal first and takes aim, but it turns out to be a female moose. Hunting stops because no one wants to kill a female that could bear young. The day passes without further opportunities, and they return home without a catch. Life will be harder without moose meat, so they plan to hunt a North American reindeer next. In Chevak, Alaska, Johan is taking his son-in-law Patrick and grandson Santa out hunting today. They don't have a specific target and plan to hunt whatever they encounter, such as birds, moose, or rabbits. Johan and his wife Teresa have been lovingly married for a lifetime. They have 9 daughters, 23 grandchildren, and 6 great-grandchildren. And just remembering all those names is a challenge. Their area is home to many ptarmigans, which can be easily found in large groups. However, riding snowmobiles without any cover means they can't get close to their prey. When all 3 shoot together, they miss every shot. With no success, they decide to move and look for new opportunities. They find another target, this time with a hill for cover, allowing them to get closer. They hope to change their luck, but they miss again, which is frustrating. But real hunting requires patience to achieve the desired results. They visit a small cabin where the old man teaches them an ancient method to wash away their bad luck, hoping it will bring good fortune for their next hunt. However, this method seems ineffective as they continue to miss the ptarmigans. As they continue searching for game, a fox appears. Finally, they encounter something that can't fly, and after a spirited chase, they manage to catch it. The fox's fur can be used to make warm clothing. As for the meat, it's said to have a strong taste and is unlikely to be eaten unless absolutely necessary. They quickly skin the fox and then head home. Although they didn't catch any meat today, catching a fox is still a cause for celebration. Tiger moved with his family to a new camp and went hunting the next day. He noticed wolverine tracks on the ground. In their culture, the wolverine is considered the leader of all animals. Capturing such a prey would mark the completion of his second son's coming-of-age ceremony and provide a decent fur for the grandmother's celebration feast. Together, Tiger and his 2 sons set a trap under a tree, using smelly salmon as bait. However, knowing the cunning nature of the wolverine, they also set up a snare trap nearby. As they were working, a crow flew overhead, a rare sign of good luck for them. With the wolverine trap set early, they decided to hunt for ptarmigans, grouse, or rabbits to ensure fresh meat for the children at night. Driving through the bushes, they quickly spotted a group of ptarmigans. Their pure white feathers blended with the snow, making them difficult to spot. The sons took turns shooting and both managed to secure their targets, which pleased Tiger as it meant they had secured food for the evening. The next day, they returned to the same spot and found fresh wolverine tracks and some of the bait eaten, but the animal had not been caught. The empty trap was disappointing, but the day was not over yet, and the other traps still held potential. In their culture, giving up is not an option, which is essential for surviving in such a harsh environment. Upon reaching the second trap, They were stunned to find a live wolverine snarling at them from a tree. After safely transporting it to the northwest, Tiger finally felt relieved, as he had a respectable fur to donate at the ancestral feast, and his second son's rite of passage was complete. Out of respect, Tiger stuffed moose fat into the wolverine's mouth as its last meal. Back home, he taught his children how to process the animal. Although the fur was valuable, it was destined to be donated. Seeing someone else wearing a garment made from the wolverine fur they caught would be a source of pride. Tiger not only taught, but also let his sons try their hands to learn faster. The remaining wolverine meat was cremated, allowing it to enter the cycle of life, adhering to their traditional culture passed down from their ancestors. This was not about superstition, but a belief and a form of spiritual support. Female hunter Jody is hunting North American reindeer with her son Denarek in central Yukon River, Igor. Nearby, a 40-mile migration route of reindeer has been used for thousands of years by her people, who hunt not for sport, but to feed their families. After some searching, they spot a herd of reindeer on a mountaintop. Like other hunting, they target only males, focusing on one with a particularly long beard. Denarek, now grown up, is given the role of lead shooter to build his skills. His inexperience causes him to miss the first shot due to bullet drop. As the herd starts to flee, he has one last chance. Jody advises him to stay calm, take a deep breath, and hold it to maximize stability. Denarek takes his final chance and successfully hunts a North American reindeer. After expressing their thanks, they begin to butcher the animal. In respect for the life given, they perform charitable acts. Traditionally, they first cut off the reindeer's head and point it towards their home. This year, the migration route of the herd changed, leaving many villagers without this valuable game. The reindeer they hunted will be shared back in Igor with their family and friends. Jody drives a dog sled along the Yukon River, a mighty river originating in Canada, vital both in winter and summer for the livelihood of most Indigenous people along its banks. The dogs sprint energetically, even unaware when Jody takes a fall. Handling a dog sled is challenging, but Jody simply rights the sled and continues. Overcoming many difficulties, she finally arrives at the beautiful village where her husband, son, and friends await. The news that Denarek hunted the reindeer earns him praise from Chief Karma, making his parents proud. Looking ahead, Denarek can contribute more to the community, enhancing his prestige. As the reindeer's migration path changed, many missed out on game. Jody's family's arrival is a timely help. They maintain the tradition of mutual support and honoring elders, passing it down through generations. Today, the remaining meat is shared with friends. They light a fire, cut fresh tenderloin, and backstrap into small pieces and grill them. Eating food from the land is like therapy, ensuring their health. This truly embodies the saying, local conditions nurture local people. Today, Tiger and his family are heading to Fish Creek Lake to see if they can catch a beaver to eat. Living in the wilderness from a young age, they learned how to obtain food from the land. Beaver meat, rich in fat, is one of the best foods for the cold winter, and its fur can also sell for a good price. They arrive at a beaver lodge and start to chop through the ice. For such a large ice hole, it's best to start with an axe, because using an ice chisel could break through the ice layer, causing river water to flood the hole and make cleaning very difficult. While they were talking, Tiger broke through the ice, and water mixed with impurities gushed out, a sign that beavers frequently visit the area. Previously, Tiger had failed to catch a beaver and had consulted with elders about setting traps in this area based on their advice. Louise needs to keep an eye on the children, ensuring they don't ingest any water or ice from the area, as it may contain giardia, which causes beaver fever, a rather unpleasant illness. Tiger places a noose tied to a piece of wood. As the beaver swims back and forth, if it carelessly sticks its head through the noose, it would become a big meal for the family. After setting the trap, they cover the hole with snow and head home to wait. Living in the wilderness, the family has no other way to get food and must be self-sufficient. The next night, Tiger returns with his family, intent on catching the beaver. The bait from yesterday is gone, a promising sign. They shovel away the excess snow and break open the refrozen ice. When they lift the stick, they are stunned to see that the noose has been triggered but caught nothing. Analyzing the situation, Tiger suspects the noose was too large, allowing the beaver to swim through. With this experience, he plans to make the noose smaller and try again. They correct the mistake and continue their efforts, leaving the rest to fate, hoping for a catch next time. Since it's still early, they try ice fishing nearby. Finding ways to obtain food is key to survival here. Just then, a raven flies overhead, its unique call catching Tiger's attention. In their culture, ravens are seen as harbingers of good things. It seems their beaver trapping might yet be successful. Until evening, however, they catch no fish and return to camp empty-handed. On the third day, Tiger and his family returned. The bait was gone again, but after the previous failure, Tiger was noticeably less optimistic. Only after breaking through the ice could they see if their efforts were successful. The children were eager to eat beaver meat, so the pressure on Tiger was considerable. Despite the challenges, he persisted and continued to chip away at the ice. He retrieved the bait from the ice hole that he had placed the day before. When he pulled out the trap, the whole family was excited. After several days of effort, Tiger finally caught a large beaver. After the children had a chance to see it, they used the snow to dry the beaver's fur. Beaver meat, rich in fat and tender, was loaded onto the vehicle, and the children took their seats in the front as the satisfied family headed back to camp. A few hours later, the beaver turned into a pot of deliciously cooked meat. Although the catch was large, with so many mouths to feed at home, it probably wouldn't last many meals. Watching the children eagerly devour their meal, Tiger and his wife felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Their relentless efforts had finally paid off. In this materialistic age, their desires were simple. To have enough food to survive was more than enough. With the arrival of spring, Daniel's family has changed their diet. Every year at this time, they go to the other side of the island in search of food. Here they can hunt seabirds and seals, and also find unexpected treasures on the beach. After a day's boat ride, they will rest tonight in the hunting cabin before the young people go bird hunting, and Daniel tries his luck on the beach tomorrow. Early the next morning, the young hunters begin their hunt. Chase and his friend lie in wait, hoping for seabirds to come their way. It is well known that hitting fast-moving targets is very difficult. At such close range, Chase uses 2 shots, but the duck remains unscathed, causing his companion to burst out laughing. After waiting a while, another duck charges towards them. His companion tries to show off his skills to Chase, but to no avail. Hunting requires patience, a lesson they must learn. By midday, the 2 young men have caught nothing and reluctantly change hunting spots. Meanwhile, Daniel is searching the beach for treasures washed ashore. Each year, the change in sea currents brings the carcasses of naturally deceased walruses to the shore, allowing locals to collect valuable walrus ivory. However, only indigenous islanders are legally allowed to possess these treasures. Walrus ivory varies in color from pure white to pure black, and is not easy to find. Daniel walks the beach all day without finding anything. Just as he is about to give up, a section of walrus spine appears, rekindling his hope. After a careful search, he finally finds a golden tusk nearby. Since a walrus has at least 2 tusks, there should be another nearby, and indeed, there is a white one lying beside it. Chase and his friends have moved to a new hunting spot, where the wind and waves are strong, destroying their previous hideout. They reinforce and raise it to remain hidden from prey. This elevated terrain offers a good view of the surroundings, making it an ideal hunting ground. After some waiting, 3 waterfowl fly towards them but turn away before coming within effective range. They continue to wait, and soon Chris joins them. Before they can talk much, a new opportunity arises with 6 birds flying straight towards them. The 3 men fire together but miss again. While the young men's failure is excusable, it's unexpected for an experienced hunter like Chris. Frustrated, yet another bird approaches him, and this time he steadies himself and successfully downs the prey. With money earned and food secured, they all laugh together. During their downtime, all 4 men search the beach for walrus ivory. Living in such a place, opportunities to earn money are scarce throughout the year. To increase their chances, Chase starts digging in the sand. Although his efforts seem aimless, he might just uncover something valuable. Indeed, he discovers a treasure, an ivory tusk, clearly processed. Chris concludes it must be a tool left by their ancestors, a genuine antique. Daniel quickly confirms this. It's likely a very primitive harpoon head used by ancient people to hunt walruses and whales. In short, This ivory could fetch a good price. In Gamble on St. Lawrence Island, due to food scarcity, Chris and Chase rise early to stake out seals by the seaside. The seals are alert, only surfacing briefly when their oxygen runs low before diving back into the sea, leaving the brothers with no chance to strike. Seeing little hope here, they decide to try their luck at sea. Daniel, having previously suffered an injury that led to heart disease, has handed over the role of hunting leader to his eldest son, Chris, while his younger son, Chase, has been promoted to lead shooter. Both need time to adapt to their new roles. After some searching, the group finds a group of seals on an ice floe. Shooting from a moving boat poses a tough challenge for Chase. His shot misses and the seals scatter, a common occurrence in hunting, and they refrain from blaming each other, choosing instead to quickly seek the next target. Seal hunting in water is more challenging than on ice. The seals pop up briefly like whack-a-moles, a test of the hunter's quick aiming and anticipation skills. For Chase, newly appointed as lead shooter, this is exceedingly difficult. As the leader, Chris also faces challenges, piloting the boat, searching for prey, and coordinating the hunt, all while considering not just his immediate family, but the entire community. Watching Chase, Daniel reminisces about his own youth, filled with panic and confusion. He understands that his son must endure this phase to learn and adapt. When the seals frightened by their earlier attempts no longer surface, they need to find a new hunting spot. After several failures, Chase finally succeeds in killing a seal. They must quickly retrieve it from the sea, as it sinks fast after death. Using a harpoon is also part of the lead shooter's duties, aiming for a quick, painless kill. Relieved after loading the food onto the boat, the group continues hunting as there's still daylight. Chase seems to have found the knack, striking another seal with a long-distance shot. Seeing his son strive so hard brings immense satisfaction to Daniel. Back on shore, they sharpen knives and butcher the seal, which is rich in fat essential for surviving the harsh weather. Chris, who has been hunting with his father since he was 5, now passes these skills to Chase, continuing the family tradition. After cleaning the organs, they rinse the remaining meat in the sea and store it. After a long day, it's time they treated themselves. They've been craving fresh seal meat, and today's large haul means they can feast heartily. They cook the meat by the sea, cutting it into pieces to enjoy slowly. A mischievous seal just popped its head out from the sea and became the target for a female hunter. Unafraid of humans, it kept peeking out, almost provocatively. The female hunter decisively pulled the trigger, scaring the seal into swiftly swimming away. She pursued in the direction it fled. The seal continued to surface, and she locked onto it again. Although she missed, the seal dared not show itself again. The female hunter, named Nichols, was in Gamble, Alaska. Her brother Chris soon joined her. Learning of her continual misses, he helped adjust the accuracy of her shotgun. Hunting seals, walruses, and whales is a privilege for the natives here, as cultivation and breeding are impossible. Hunting marine animals is their only source of food. Outsiders can also purchase expensive hunting permits for seals. After recalibrating the shotgun, they returned to the seaside, hoping for a catch, but found no signs of prey and had no opportunity to shoot. Since they couldn't find suitable targets along the coast, they decided to try their luck at sea. Even if they didn't encounter seals, they could still catch crabs or hunt seabirds. Hunting life is far from easy, fraught with danger and unexpected events. When boarding the boat, Nichols was slightly slow and got her lower body soaked by the cold seawater. But this minor mishap did not deter them. After a while, they spotted a group of seabirds. When the prey approached, Nichols fired but missed. Shooting fast-flying birds from a moving boat is extremely challenging, even for experienced hunters. Soon, more seabirds flew towards them. Nichols seized the opportunity and successfully hit a bird. They chased the boat to the bird, and to minimize its suffering, they quickly dispatched it with a knife. This was Nichols' first cormorant of the season, weighing about 3 to 4 pounds. Since their father developed heart disease, the younger generation, especially Chris, who now took over as leader, had started to rely on their own skills. The pressures from all sides were increasing. Just then, the seal reappeared. Nichols, wanting to redeem herself, tried to shoot, but aiming from a rocking boat proved even more difficult than on land. She missed again. The target was a shy, ringed seal that would not show itself again after being frightened. They continued searching for new targets. Nichols, a determined woman, did not want to follow her mother in gathering berries and managing household chores. She preferred hunting at sea. There are many ways to find food, such as catching crabs or harvesting seabird eggs. But the sea was too rough today for those activities. So they focused on hunting seabirds. They navigated to where the seabirds congregated and waited for the prey to come closer. Chris commanded, while Nichols fully utilized her hunting skills. Shotguns have a wide range and are very effective at close range. After a series of shots, they bagged 8 cormorants, a very good haul. The siblings went ashore to process their catch. Seabird feathers are difficult to pluck cleanly, so they are often torn off with the skin. The remaining soft parts, except for the head and tail, are edible. Nichols learned a lot today. Despite many mistakes, these will be valuable experiences in her journey to becoming an excellent huntress. As they were processing the birds, some village elders came to the beach. The siblings shared 2 of their hunted birds with them. Sharing food and honoring elders are their traditions. And continuing these traditions is the mission of these young people. Here in Gamble on St. Lawrence Island, salmon becomes the staple food for the local natives each summer. They migrate from the ocean to inland rivers to spawn. Once their mission ends, their life is nearly over, and their flesh becomes inedible, making the fishing season very brief. Daniel dislikes fishing due to his lack of patience, so today's task is handed to Chris, who will head there with his wife and sister. They travel nearly 30 kilometers along the coastline to reach the Akulik River, their ancestral fishing spot. Here, they set a fishing net in the narrower parts of the river and drag it towards deeper waters. When in position, they sink a stone to serve as an anchor for the net, securing the other end to a large rock on shore. After a few hours, they return for their first check. During this time, Chris and his father construct a simple smokehouse. Local resources are scarce, so even plywood and old pallets are valuable. They must be frugal with their materials. The harsh, rapidly changing weather means the smokehouse often needs to be rebuilt annually. They shape it like a box and add several racks inside. Now it's time to check the net. Salmon only comes once a year, so catching more now makes the coming days easier. However, their hopes are dashed when they find the net empty. Life in the wilderness is about scraping by, and without catching prey they face hunger. They move upstream to narrower parts where they try their luck again. Static netting wastes time and isn't always successful, so they change tactics. The water here is shallow enough to cover the entire riverbed with the net. With one person on each end, they slowly walk the net upstream. When in position, Chris drives the fish towards the net from the opposite direction. This strategy works well, capturing a large number of salmon, including the rare king salmon. This catch, nearly 100 pounds, will feed their families and the elderly. Having mastered the right fishing technique, they replicate it, catching 7 or 8 more fish with the second net. As hunters reliant on nature, they avoid greed, taking only what they need to survive. The caught fish must be quickly gutted to preserve their valuable, nutrient-rich roe, which bursts with flavor. After cleaning the catch, it's time to head home. The salmon are processed on a cutting board, removing heads and bones, leaving only the rich orange meat, which is then smoked for preservation. Modern people get their food from stores, but here, the natives live self-sufficiently, with everything coming from the land and sea, eating only natural foods. This ancient lifestyle is passed down through generations, hoping it never vanishes from the earth. After a long day, the 3 treat themselves. They're having plenty of delicious salmon tonight. They slice the fish and grill it directly over charcoal. The fish ends up crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, a perfect reward for today's hard work. Eating several pounds of salmon each is no problem after such a tiring day. These ocean creatures, resembling radishes, are called sea apples by the locals. When unable to hunt larger prey, they consume these to stave off hunger. Many envy this free and easy lifestyle, but the hidden dangers and surprises can sometimes be unbearable. Daniel, along with his son, daughter, and son-in-law, went to the seaside. Locals have placed shelters along the beach at intervals for hunting. The 4 split into 2 groups to wait for prey to come to them. In the past, their lives had few choices. They relied on hunting to feed their families, so nearly every shelter had a hunter. Everyone hunted together, sharing experiences and food. With societal progress, this way of life has gradually been abandoned, with only a few families like Daniel's still maintaining these ancient traditions. Deborah, the son-in-law born in Shishmaref and an Inupiat, finds this life novel and exciting, and learns many new things. Daniel and Chase are intently searching for seals when a bird lands right at their feet, as if signaling the imminent appearance of prey. Sure enough, a large ringed seal shows up just a few meters from the shoreline. Chase quickly pulls out his shotgun to aim but misses due to shooting too low. 2 dark spots appear in the sea, exciting Daniel, but they turn out to be just seabirds. This minor failure hits Chase hard, and he might dwell on it for a long time. Seals usually do not act alone. Spotting one often means there are more. Likely, they might appear near Nichols. To ensure his daughter doesn't miss the opportunity, Daniel quickly alerts her. No seals had appeared near his daughter and son-in-law yet, so this news excites the young couple, especially since it's Nichols's first seal hunt. However, the strong winds and waves severely impair visibility, making it hard to see even if a seal appears. Daniel tells us that his daughter never liked hunting as a child, but changed her attitude completely as she grew older, which is why she's only hunting her first seal now. Her return to hunting pleases her father the most, as if he has regained a child. Just then, a long-awaited seal finally appears. Nichols quickly takes aim, and Daniel closely watches the action. Hunting opportunities are fleeting. The seal briefly appears before vanishing into the vast ocean. As the sun sets, their chances dwindle. They thought they might return empty-handed today, but the seal reappears, right near Nichols. She doesn't hesitate to pull out her shotgun and fire, but like Chase, she aims too low and misses on her first try. There's still a chance as the seal hasn't gone far. She fires again, hoping to recover the situation, but due to nervousness, the shot hits low again. However, today's seal is stubborn. Despite being shot at, it dares to surface again. Nichols's third shot is successful, and she finally downs it. Daniel and Chase, closely monitoring the situation, rush over as they see the successful hunt. Chase, having prepared the fishing rod and hooks in advance, skillfully drags the catch to shore. It's a ringed seal, weighing several tens of pounds. After much effort, Nichols has succeeded. Hunting to sustain oneself is just the first step. More challenges will come. They bring the seal home, where it's already pitch dark. In the cold outdoors, Daniel conducts a dissection lesson. The white fat is turned into seal oil, and they consume the heart, kidneys, and even the intestines. This is Ericaquette in Alaska, where after the snow melts, a brief spring begins. Tiger, a native who supports 7 children through hunting, is taking his older kids to Canuti, his family's private land. As inheritors of a nomadic tradition, they return here every spring to hunt. The season for hunting large game has mostly ended, and now only fish, waterfowl, and small animals are available for hunting. However, obtaining food is much simpler now than in winter. For this reason, Tiger didn't bring much food with him. If the children want to eat well, they must rely on their hunting skills. As they boat forward, they keep a vigilant watch, fearful of missing any game. The children, equipped with real firearms, have been taught everything about gun safety from a young age, but their hunting skills still need practice. It's around 1 a.m., and the sun is about to set, signaling time to head back to camp. After a short rest, they set out again. With the days now significantly longer, their sleep is insufficient, but the need for food outweighs the discomfort. They are lucky today, encountering some sea ducks. These birds, which rarely venture inland from the coast, are a rare treat. However, their high speed challenges the children, who lack experience with moving targets, and they fail to keep any. Just when the family feels disappointed, they spot another sea duck in the water. Hunting waterborne prey is easier, so the children successfully catch it. The situation is looking up, but they need to continue working hard, as 1 duck is not enough to feed a family of 9. The river channels they visit are narrow, which prompted Tiger to buy a small, powerful boat last year that can handle various conditions. On their journey, they encounter a moose with 2 calves, future food for the children, making Tiger very happy. Besides the moose, swans appear nearby, one of the only birds they do not hunt out of respect for their lifelong monogamous bonds. With no real night now, their sense of time blurs, and they hardly know how long it's been since they last slept. Beaver dams often block the narrow channels, challenging navigation. Tiger retreats a distance, then charges forward. He first clears a path over the dam, retreats, and charges again, successfully passing through. Hard journeys often yield rewards. 2 sea ducks are spotted swimming ahead. Tiger's son quickly takes aim. With the ducks not flying, his accuracy is good, and he shoots one down. Surprisingly, nearly 500 kilometers from the coast, they can still enjoy seabirds. After an intense day, around 4 a.m., the children rest briefly before starting their day's work. They spot a muskrat in the river, and the eldest son uses 3 bullets to take it down. This muskrat becomes their breakfast. After skinning and gutting it, they roast it on the fire, supplementing it with some sausage to fill their bellies. Satisfied, they use the sky as their blanket and the ground as their bed to sleep soundly. In spring and summer, they rely on small game to survive, holding out until autumn when they can hunt a large moose. Here in Arakaket, Alaska, after surviving on chicken, duck, and fish through spring and summer, Tiger, a native who supports 7 children, welcomes the fall. It's moose season again, and their family can feast heartily. Today he is taking several children to the moose hunting grounds along the Alatna River. However, they are not the only hunters in this wilderness. Powerful grizzly bears and fierce wolf packs also eye this super prey, meaning the hunters themselves could become the hunted. The hunting team finds a spot to settle. Tiger begins to mimic the call of a moose, a skill the younger ones also need to learn. Following Athabascan tradition, Tiger never says he is out to hunt because it might jinx his luck. Moose have highly sensitive hearing, so they walk through bushes lifting their feet high to avoid making noise. Crossing a forest, they reach a small open lake where a broken tree, marked by a male moose, stands. They mimic the moose call nearby and quietly wait for the prey to approach. Patience is the hardest part of hunting. Tiger, who couldn't stand waiting as a child, now must exercise patience having so many children. Suddenly, the sound of a breaking branch grabs their attention. Tiger picks up the horn and mimics the moose call again, hoping to attract a bull in heat. However, after some time, no game appears. Having spent considerable time here, they decide to move to a better location. They walk about 10 kilometers upstream to a small campsite with a cabin left by Tiger's grandmother. Before approaching, they check for any grizzly bears to avoid becoming an appetizer for predators. Fortunately, the door and windows are intact, indicating no bear visits. But opening the door gives them a scare as squirrels had raided the place, consuming all the food and causing havoc. After cleaning up and resting, they resume their journey. Moose often frequent islands and lakes, so they focus on these areas. Sure enough, they soon spot a target. The moose is fast, and they need a boat to keep up. To direct the moose to a specific area, Tiger has his son fire a blank shot to scare it in the desired direction. They then quickly boat to the other side of the island, where they find moose tracks, but lose sight of the animal. After a thorough search, they discover a bull moose hidden in dense bushes. In this epic moment, Tiger hands the responsibility to his son. They are very close to the prey, and it takes only 1 bullet to bring down the moose. Transporting a 1,000-pound animal away from waterways is not easy, especially as it's late, and they don't have enough time to complete the process. For now, they can only remove the innards to prevent the meat from spoiling. How to transport the meat home will have to wait until tomorrow. This is the second son's first moose hunt, and the ease of his success excites even Tiger. With time pressing, they quickly process the innards and rush back to camp to rest. The natives consume many organs, such as the heart, kidneys, and intestines, which will not go to waste. The animal is so large that several people work until it's too dark to see, finally removing the innards. They plan to return early the next morning to retrieve the meat. But leaving so much meat in the wild is risky. If predators find it, not even the bones may remain. Tiger, a native Alaskan, hunted a moose weighing over 1,000 pounds. Since it was too late to transport the meat back to camp, they only managed to process the innards and planned to transport the meat the next day. The night was restless, as if 25 little mice were gnawing inside his stomach. Early the next morning, they hurried back to the hunting grounds. Fortunately, the moose meat was still there. They butchered the carcass and transported it in batches to their boat. With this meat, their lives would be much better. However, Tiger's family would not keep all the food to themselves. They decided to share some with the village elders. The father and son duo chose a large moose leg, weighing dozens of pounds, and took it to Tiger's Uncle Daniel's house. He proudly told the elder that it was his son who had hunted the moose. This is Akiachak, Alaska, where newcomer Green, along with his native wife Marcella and their children, is heading to a rocky area to gather seafood. The local people rely on the land for food, subsisting on fish, deer, seals, and clams. With the tide just out, seafood is abundant everywhere. The sparse population nearby means there is little competition. They brought many buckets, some for collecting seafood, others to make into octopus traps. Today is a very low tide, so they expect to find more sea creatures than usual. However, other than crabs, they are specifically looking to catch octopus since it's the preferred bait for halibut. Green cuts a small hole in a lid and buries it in the ground, a place octopuses favor, according to local knowledge. After setting the trap, they leave it overnight to see if it works. Before heading home, they go to another spot to catch limpets, Marcella's favorite snack, which she particularly enjoys as sashimi. They aim to collect about a dozen, mindful that eating too many raw can cause stomach upset. The next day, the Green family returns to the trap site. They inspect each bucket, but, unfortunately, find them all empty. Just as they start to feel disappointed, they discover an octopus hiding under a rock. Octopuses have strong suction and are difficult to remove from crevices, but the locals have their ways. Marcella uses a tube to blow air under the rock, and surprisingly, the octopus emerges readily to meet its fate. The locals do not eat this catch. It's solely for baiting halibut. Back home, they cut the octopus into small chunks and hook them onto lines. The size of the hooks indicates they're targeting large halibut. With preparations complete, the family heads out to sea. They anchor one end of the rope in the sea and start hanging hooks, at least 20 needed to catch a halibut. By evening, it's time to check their catch, with feelings of excitement and anxiety, since they don't know what they might have caught. After pulling the rope to the hooks, initially, there is nothing. Not even the bait is touched. But soon, they haul up a cod. While nutritious, cod is not highly regarded locally and even called a trash fish. Annoyed, Green continues pulling the line and catches another cod, which he unhappily throws back. The rope grows heavier, suggesting something big. After strenuous efforts, they are not disappointed by the sea. A large halibut is on the hook, but the rope doesn't lighten, indicating more to come. After more intense pulling, another large halibut appears. Just when they think their luck might be over, they catch the biggest one yet. The 3 halibut together weigh over 100 pounds, far exceeding their expectations. The Greens won't keep this bounty to themselves. They'll share it with the community elders. This act of sharing is both a mark of respect and a way to pass on traditions.